Captured by the beast, the jungle moon of Vikara shivered under twin suns, and every leaf hid a secret. Lyra, a young scout from the violet-skinned Thryn people, crept through tall red ferns, her translator pack humming on her belt. She had trained for danger, but nothing prepared her for the huge metal shadow that roared down from the clouds. Engines shrieked, trees snapped, and a wall of hot air threw her to the ground. Leaves still fell when the human stepped out of the smoke. He looked like the nightmare in every Thryn nursery tale, towering, armored in black plates, visor glowing cold blue. His gun was longer than her arm. Lyra's heartbeat drummed like war drums in her ears. Humans eat us whole, the elders had sworn. If one catches you, bite your own tongue before the teeth find you. Paralyzed, she reached for her dagger anyway, but a boot pressed it gently. Away, the visor slid up. Two gray eyes stared back, steady but not cruel. The human did not growl. He did not bare fangs. He just spoke in a calm voice Lyra could not understand. Only one clear word reached her translator. Safe. How could that be? Nothing about him felt safe. Yet when she flinched, he lowered his weapon, palms open, showing he would not shoot. Then he pointed to the rising smoke. Fire raced along broken fuel lines toward his crashed dropship. He gestured again, follow. Instinct said run. Logic said stay. Lyra knew the jungle better than any map, but the fire knew no friend. If flames reached the resin-rich canopy, an inferno would swallow them both. She swallowed her fear and nodded once. The human barked something into a wrist unit, then scooped her up as if she weighed nothing. Before she could protest, they leapt. Across a blazing trench onto a rocky ledge. Heat bit her skin. Smoke burned her eyes. But the human's grip stayed firm, protective, almost gentle. Minutes later they reached a rescue pod half buried in turf. Its hatch refused to open. Sparks danced on the control panel. The human cursed. Any language understood that tone. He set Lyra down and shoved with both arms. Metal screamed. The door inched wide, then stuck. A second shove, wider. At last, a space big enough for her slim frame. He motioned. Inside. She shook her head. Leaving him outside felt wrong. But he insisted, pointing to the sky. Distant thunder rolled. Thryn patrol craft, drawn by the fire. Lyra slipped through. Cold air greeted her. The pod's interior smelled of antiseptic and brass. Light strips flickered weakly. She watched through the gap as the human hammered a wrench against jammed hinges, buying time. Blinding search beams swept the forest. Gunships hovered like angry hornets. They were Thryn, her people. But would they save her or blame her for being captured? The human pulled a smoke flare from his belt, popped it, and slammed the door just as laser bursts stitched the earth. Darkness swallowed her. Clang after clang rattled the pod as outside fire intensified. Lyra pressed an ear to the bulkhead. Muffled shouts in Thryn tongue ordered surrender, followed by the human's deep answer, a single defiant roar. More shots, more smoke, but no screams. Suddenly the pod lurched, tilted, then settled. Silence. Did they kill him? Her stomach knotted. Why should she care for an enemy? Yet she did. Lights snapped on overhead. The human dropped through the hatch like a miracle, helmet scorched, breathing hard. He sealed it, punched a code, and a hiss announced life support. Activation. Then he collapsed to one knee, clutching his side. Energy bolt-charred armor proved it. Lyra's healer instincts overrode fear. She found a medkit, glanced at holographic symbols close cousins to Thryn glyphs. Enough to guess use. She sprayed coagulant foam on the wound while he watched. Surprised but trusting, moments ticked by. Finally he spoke softly. Thank you, tapping his chest. He pointed at her and tilted his head. A simple question. Her name? Lyra, she whispered. He smiled, repeating it with sharp human accent. Lyra. Then he pressed a fist to his heart. Dax, the gesture felt like a promise. Sirens howled outside. The Thryn patrols were not gone. Through a cracked viewport, Lyra saw soldiers forming search grids. If they found the pod, they would surely kill Dax. And maybe her for helping him. Old Taily said humans devoured Thryn. Yet here she was, tending his wound. The world suddenly felt upside down. An explosion rocked the forest. Dax's dropship, finally consumed. Searchlights swung away. Dax flicked a switch and the pod's engines rumbled alive. But a red warning glowed. Stabilizer offline. The pod could jump, but without control, it might crash again, this time into vacuum. Dax looked at Lyra, then at the warning, then back. Slowly he set his rifle at her feet. No threat. He opened a maintenance panel, exposed twisted wires, and pointed to himself. Then to her slender fingers. Help me. She hesitated, then nodded. Together they worked. He cut, she spliced. Fires outside crept closer. Branches crackled. Sweat stung her eyes. She handed him the last conduit. He jammed it home. Green light. Stabilizer online. Engines roared. The pod shot upward between blazing trees, punching through smoke, past twin suns toward black space. Gravity crushed them into seats. Lyra's mind raced faster. Captured by the beast, yes, but saved by him too. Now they were alone, hurtling into stars. Destination unknown. When stabilizers leveled the craft, Dax unbuckled and retrieved a sealed ration pack. He tore it open, broke off a piece of protein bread, and offered it to her first. Lyra's hands trembled. Humans eat us, echoed the old fear. Yet this human gave food instead of taking flesh. She accepted the bread, tasted salty grain, and breathed. Alive, Dax smiled a small, tired curl of lips and bit the second half himself. No fangs, no gore, just hunger tamed by sharing. Lyra felt the story she knew about humans begin to crack. Like thin ice outside. Stars multiplied, silent witnesses to an impossible alliance. Inside, two former enemies sat knee to knee, sharing dry bread and heavy questions. She was his prisoner, or was he now hers? Who really captured whom? In that humming pod, trust was still a fragile candle, but it burned brighter than fear. Somewhere far behind on the jungle moon, elders would soon whisper that the beast had taken their scout to be devoured. They would never guess the truth. The beast was bleeding, laughing, learning her name. Lyra swallowed the last crumb, met Dax's steady eyes, and felt destiny unfold quiet as breath before the storm. The escape pod floated silently in space. Inside, Lyra sat across from the human, Dax, the beast who didn't eat her. She watched him as he typed on a flickering screen. His armor was cracked, one arm bruised and stiff. He had barely slept. Lyra still didn't understand why he had saved her, why he had fed her, and why, after all this, he hadn't asked for anything in return. In Thryn culture, that meant danger. No one gave something for free, not even kindness. She hugged her knees, eyes scanning every tool, every compartment inside the pod. If she had to escape, she needed to know the exits. Even if part of her didn't want to leave yet. Dax looked at her, then slowly pointed to the ration pack again. Eat, he said. Lyra hesitated. The old fear returned. Maybe the food was poisoned. Maybe it was part of some ritual. Feed the prey before the real meal. But he took the first bite again, like last time. Chewed, swallowed, then offered the rest. No poison. No tricks. Just food. Her fingers brushed his as she took the packet. A small shock passed between them, not from static, but from something deeper. She didn't know what it was. Thank you, she said softly. His eyes widened. He repeated, thank you, then touched his chest. Dax, she pointed. To herself, Lyra. Dax smiled, then opened a device on his wrist. A small projector beamed out holographic images. Earth, humans, soldiers, maps of galaxies. He was trying to teach her. She understood only pieces. A world with blue skies. A city of tall buildings. Green trees. No cages. No war. Lyra stared at the projection of Earth, her violet eyes full of confusion. Why would a human show her this? She was the enemy. She pointed to the word on the screen. Home. Dax nodded. My home. Then he looked at her, tilted his head. Your home? Lyra thought for a second, then took the device and tapped a different screen. She drew a simple shape, a crescent-shaped moon surrounded by vines. Her jungle moon, Dax understood. He tapped her drawing and said, Lyra's home. She smiled a little. He smiled back. Something strange was happening between them. A quiet, unspoken peace. Suddenly, the pod shook. An alarm blared. Something was wrong. Dax jumped up and checked the main screen. His face became serious. He muttered in his own language, words she couldn't translate, but his tone made her chest tighten. Another ship was approaching. Lyra looked through the small window. A sleek black vessel moved silently toward them. It wasn't Thayer YNN. It wasn't human military. It was something else. Pirates. Dax grabbed his rifle and opened a secret panel in the wall. He tossed her a small shock blade. Lyra caught it. He didn't treat her like a prisoner. Now he treated her like a teammate. The pirates hailed them. The message came through, crackling in broken galactic common. Power down. Hand over cargo. No. Fight. No pain. Cargo. They meant her. Dax looked at Lyra. He didn't say anything. Just waited for her signal. For the first time in her life, Lyra chose the human. She nodded. Together, they prepared. The pirate ship latched onto the pod with a loud clang. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The hatch hissed open. 3 armed figures entered, tall, pale, wearing dirty armor and breathing masks. They didn't expect resistance. That was their mistake. Dax moved first, swift and brutal. One pirate fell with a hard strike to the chest. Lyra darted low, slicing across another's leg. She wasn't a fighter like Dax, but she was fast. Third pirate grabbed her arm. Dax roared, not like a beast, but like someone afraid to lose her. He slammed into the pirate and pulled Lyra free. Silence returned. The 3 attackers lay on the floor, unconscious. Lyra breathed hard. Her heart raced. She had fought beside a human, and he had protected her. Again. Later, they dragged the pirates into an escape chamber and ejected them into space. Lyra stood beside Dax as they watched stars pass outside the window. So, she whispered, her voice shaking slightly, you don't eat Thrin? Dax turned his head slowly, confused. Eat? He repeated. She pointed to herself. Me. He blinked. Then his face twisted in surprise. No, never. Lyra looked away, embarrassed. He reached out, gently touched her wrist. Not to hold. Not to trap, but to comfort. I save you, he said slowly. Not eat, not hurt. Lyra didn't speak. Her throat felt tight. All her life, she had believed humans were monsters, but this one, he was something else. Something she didn't have a word for yet. She looked at him, truly looked, and realized he never saw her as food. He saw her as a person. The pod continued drifting through space. Destination still unknown. But inside, too, enemies had begun something rare. Not friendship, not love, something in between. And as Lyra lay down that night, under soft emergency lights, she whispered one sentence in perfect human tongue. I'm glad you didn't eat me. Dax laughed quietly. So did she. But deep in her heart, a question formed that wouldn't let go. If he wasn't the monster, then who really was? Asterisk. The stars outside the pod drifted slowly, like silent watchers of a strange new bond. Lyra sat cross-legged near the wall, her back against cold metal. She stared at the human Dax as he carefully cleaned his weapon. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Something had changed after the pirate attack. She wasn't just the alien prisoner anymore. She was something else. And he wasn't the beast anymore. He was something more. The silence inside the pod had become its own kind of language. Dax pointed at the ration pack, then at her stomach, raising an eyebrow. Lyra shook her head. Not hungry. He gave a small nod and continued working. He understood her without needing words now. She watched him quietly. There was something almost peaceful in how he moved, focused, calm, like he was trained for chaos, but chose peace. When he could, she remembered her training. Humans are wild, loud, angry. Never trust their silence. It means they are planning death. But this silence? It was different. It felt safe. That night, she had a nightmare. She saw her homeworld in flames. Her people running. Human ships in the sky like angry gods. She screamed. She woke up shaking. Breath fast. Sweat on her forehead. Dax was already beside her. He didn't touch her. He just sat near, his eyes soft. After a long pause, he reached into a small drawer and pulled out a strange item, a glowing cube. He tapped it, and a soft blue light filled the pod. Then music started, slow, calm, like waves in a dream. Lyra blinked. Music? The cube wasn't a weapon. It was comfort. The melody wrapped around her like a blanket. Her heart slowed. Her breath settled. She looked at him with wide eyes. You fight. But you also play music? He smiled. Yes, he said, placing the cube between them. Music, peace. That night she slept again. No dreams. Only stars. The next day, they tried to communicate more. Dax took out a piece of paper, yes, real paper, and drew a stick figure with short hair and armor. Then he pointed at himself. Dax. She laughed. The drawing was simple, but funny. She took the paper and drew another stick figure taller, with antennae and long hair. Lyra. They exchanged papers like children, giggling. Then Dax drew a planet with a small tree on it. He pointed. Earth. Lyra took her turn, a moon with giant vines and glowing rivers. Vekara. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were two people, building a bridge with pictures. Later, while searching storage lockers, Lyra found something that made her freeze. A human memory stick, clear plastic with red writing. She inserted it into the console. A video began to play. It showed Dax on Earth. Standing beside a group of human soldiers, laughing, training. He looked younger, more full of life. There was no war in his eyes. Then the scene changed. Dax's team landing on her moon. Then, fire, screams, lasers. She saw her own people falling, running, dying. The footage ended with Dax dragging one of his injured teammates out of a burning wreckage. Lyra stood frozen. He was a soldier. He had killed Thrin, maybe even her friends. She turned. Dax was standing behind her, eyes heavy. He had seen what she saw. He didn't deny it, didn't explain, just walked slowly forward and sat down. Silent, ashamed. Lyra single quotes as hands shook. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to ask why. But she didn't single quotes T. Instead, she sat across from him. No words came, only silence. Long, cold, real. After some time, Dax reached into his pocket and pulled out something else. A broken charm. It was Tharynn. Her eyes widened. She recognized it. It was a child's necklace, made from bone and moonstone. He placed it gently on the table between them. Then he spoke slowly. Found it. After battle. I kept it. Lyra touched the charm. It belonged to a girl from her village. Tears formed in her eyes. Not all silence is peace. Some silence is pain. But she realized something. He could have thrown it away. He didn't. He remembered the child. Maybe he felt guilt. Maybe he wasn't a monster after all. Later, Lyra approached him again. This time she drew something. A flower. The kind that grew only on Vikara. One that only bloomed after a storm. She showed it to him. He looked at the drawing, then looked at her. She nodded. We are like this flower, she said slowly. We grew after fire. Dax smiled, eyes shining. She didn't know if it was friendship yet, maybe not trust, but it was something real. Outside the pod, the galaxy kept spinning. Warships flew. Planets burned. But inside this small space of steel and starlight, two people from different worlds sat with a broken charm. A paper flower and silence that spoke louder than words. In the quiet, they were writing a new language. And in that silence, they were no longer enemies. They were something else entirely. Lyra no longer flinched when Dax walked past her. In fact, she had begun to study the way he moved, the way he always checked systems twice, how he muttered softly to himself while fixing broken panels, and how, even in pain, he smiled when offering her food first. They had spent 7 days inside the small escape pod. 7 days sharing silence, learning gestures, drawing symbols on paper, and watching stars pass like glowing dust. No messages, no rescue. Just the two of them, and something had changed. That morning, Dax handed her a simple tool, a plasma welder, and pointed to an access hatch. It was a small job, reconnecting the ship's heat regulator, but it meant something. Trusted her. She knelt beside the panel and got to work. Her fingers, thinner than his, slipped easily into the space between cables. Sparks flew. The pod lights flickered, then stabilized. She turned, a small grin on her face. Done. He gave a quiet thumbs up and a soft, good. They didn't need more words. They just understood. Later, as they sat side by side on the floor eating protein cubes, Lyra did something she hadn't done in years. She laughed. It was over something small. Dax trying to pronounce a Thrin word and failing miserably. He made a face like he had swallowed acid. She couldn't help it. The laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it. It echoed in the metal walls like a song. Dax stared at her in surprise. Then he smiled. Truly smiled, wide and bright like stars. He laughed too. Two creatures from different worlds, laughing. In the middle of nowhere. But peace never lasts. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. A strange beep woke her from her dreams. She rose quietly and followed the sound to the control panel. A blinking message glowed on screen, encrypted, unfamiliar. Code. She tapped a few keys, translating piece by piece. It was from her own people. Unit 3, confirmed alive. Tracker still functioning. Continue with Project Salvage. Target unaware. Lyra's hands went cold. Tracker, salvage. She checked her belt. There inside the seams was a tiny blinking device. She hadn't known. Her people had planted it on her. She thought they had sent her on a simple recon mission. But now she understood. They hadn't just sent her into enemy territory. They had used her as bait. She looked at Dax. He was asleep now, head resting against the wall, breathing steady. He didn't know. He had saved her life. He had protected her, fed her, trusted her, and she had brought a tracker right into his hands. Her hands trembled as she tore the device from her uniform and crushed it under her boot. Sparks flew. The blinking light died, but the guilt didn't. The next morning, she said nothing. She couldn't. Not yet. Instead, she helped Dax repair the communication dish. She passed him tools, smiled when he cracked jokes, nodded when he drew silly pictures. But inside, her chest burned. What if her people were already on the way? What if they planned to kill him? What if she let them? Later, they sat by the observation window. Lyra stared at the stars. I used to think humans were only monsters, she said quietly, almost to herself. Dax looked up. He didn't understand every word, but he caught the meaning. He waited. She turned to him, eyes filled with something between sadness and hope. But you're not like the stories, He placed a hand on his chest. Not all human bad. Not all Thryn bad. She blinked. He understood more than she thought. Then he leaned forward, gently touched her shoulder, not in command, not in pity, but in something soft, warm, something unfamiliar, something dangerous. Lyra didn't move. She didn't want to. For a moment, time paused at the soldiers, that two enemies. One moment, she leaned her head against his shoulder and closed her eyes. But peace is a fragile thing. Outside, in the black of space, something moved. A shadow. A warship. Thryn had found them. And it wasn't coming to rescue Lyra. It was coming to finish the mission. And eliminate the human. Asterisk. The stars looked the same. But something in the space around the pod had changed. Lyra felt it in her skin, an old instinct from training. Eyes watching. Metal approaching. Not pirates this time. Not humans. Thryn. She stood by the pod's small window and saw it. A sleek black ship gliding toward them like a silent blade. Her people. Her flag. Her code. But this didn't feel like rescue. It felt like a trap. Dax was still asleep on the floor, his chest rising and falling, a thin blanket covering him. She couldn't stop staring at him. He looked peaceful. Too peaceful. He had no idea that the ship outside carried soldiers trained to kill on sight. And she had once worn their colors. Lyra touched the crushed tracker she had hidden under a panel. Sparks no longer blinked, but she wasn't sure how long it had taken her people to follow its last signal. They were coming for her, but maybe not to save her. Maybe to silence her. Maybe to kill him. The pod's alert chirped, a message from the incoming Thryn vessel. Scout Lyra. Status confirmed. Prepare for extraction. Human asset will be neutralized on contact. Stay clear. Lyra's blood went cold. She reread the message. 3 times. Neutralized. That word meant only one thing. Kill. Dax woke with the alarm. He rubbed his eyes, looked at the screen, and then at Lyra. He didn't understand the full message, but he saw the tension in her face. Your people? He asked softly. She nodded. They come to take you? She looked away. Yes, but they come to kill you. Silence filled the pod like smoke. Dax didn't speak. He walked to the control panel, pulled up ship status shields weak, weapons offline, engines barely functioning. They couldn't run. He sighed, then looked at her, eyes calm, not angry. You go, he said. Safe. Lyra stared at him. You want me to leave? He shook his head slowly. No, but I want you to live. She felt her chest twist. This human, this enemy, was still willing to die to protect her. And her own people were ready to kill without asking why. She turned back to the message and typed her reply. Order rejected. Target not hostile. Do not fire. Repeat, do not fire. The response came quickly. Your judgment compromised. Emotional attachment detected. Mission must proceed. Prepare for override. Lyra cursed under her breath. They were going to lock onto the pod and force open the hatch. She had minutes. She turned to Dax. We have to fight. He frowned. No chance, we lose. Lyra stepped forward. Then we don't fight to win. We fight to show them. Dax tilted his head. Show what? She pointed to her heart. That I chose. That I'm not theirs anymore. Together, they prepared. Dax gave her his backup weapon, a stun blaster. She adjusted the settings. Lyra pulled her old Thryn scout blade from storage. She had thrown it away days ago. Now she strapped it to her hip. She wasn't fighting for the Thryn. She wasn't fighting for the humans. She was fighting for truth. The enemy ship locked on. A beam of light connected the pod to the larger vessel. Seconds later, the pod hatch blew open. Smoke poured in. 3 Thryn soldiers entered, rifles raised. They wore the same armor she once wore. One of them saw her and stopped. Lyra, you're alive? She raised her hands. Stop. The human is not a threat. But the other soldier stepped forward and aimed at Dax. No mercy for enemy. He Growled. Lyra didn't hesitate. She fired her stun blaster. Blue light slammed into his chest. He crumpled. The room froze. Her own people looked at her in shock. Traitor, one whispered. No, she said. I opened my eyes. Outside the ship, alarms screamed unauthorized weapon use. Dax stepped forward and dropped his weapon to show no threat. But his eyes never left Lyra. She stood between him and the guns of her people. You trained me to follow truth, she said, her voice steady. So why do you now silence it? The commander stepped into the hatch. He was older, sharper, his voice cold. You were bait, Lyra, disposable, but you've learned too much. That makes you dangerous. I was more than bait, she snapped. I was human to him before I was even Thryn to you. The commander lifted his gun, then. Die like them. He fired, but Dax moved faster. He jumped in front of her. The blast hit him square in the chest. He dropped. Lyra screamed. Time slowed. She lunged forward, blade in hand, and disarmed the commander in one furious move. Her foot landed hard against his chest. He fell. The other soldiers backed off. No orders. No fight. Just silence. Lyra knelt beside Dax. His eyes fluttered open, weak, burning. I'm sorry, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Still alive, she sobbed. Why did you save me again? He touched her cheek, voice barely a breath. Because you were never just another alien. The commander was arrested by his own men. Lyra had changed everything. Not with war, not with lies. But with choice. And sacrifice. That day, she sent one final message to the Thryn Council. The human lives. He's under my protection. And if you come for him again, you will find me in your way. She didn't know if peace was possible, but she knew this. He had saved her heart. Now she would fight to protect his. The sky outside the window was no longer full of stars. It was full of warships. Gray metal giants floated above, blocking the light from distant suns. Some were Thryn. Some were human. Some unknown. But inside the small escape pod, Lyra only cared about one thing. Dax. He lay on the medbed, breathing shallow. His chest was bandaged where the energy blast had hit. Burns covered part of his armor. His eyes fluttered open, then closed again. He was alive, but barely, and it was her people who did this. Her voice trembled as she whispered, You shouldn't have saved me. His voice cracked, barely louder than air. I would do it again. Lyra had sent her warning to the Thryn Council. She had stood up for him. She had declared herself as protector. But instead of retreating, the Thryn had sent more ships. They didn't want peace. They wanted to erase the truth. And now, something even more terrifying was happening. Strange signals filled the pod's screen. Unknown frequencies. Strange readings. Dax's console buzzed with a red warning. Genetic signature detected. Level red clearance. She frowned. What's that? A message followed. Subject: Lyra. Alert. DNA pattern triggered. Her blood ran cold. Not Dax, not the pod. She was the signal. She rushed to the pod's med scanner and replayed the last full-body scan. Her data blinked on screen. Thryn genetic markers, yes, but something else shimmered beneath. A hidden sequence. Ancient, dormant, powerful. Not normal Thryn DNA. This was older, from the first generation of explorers. The Starcaller's myths that most had forgotten, but the scanner didn't lie. Lyra wasn't just a scout. She was something else. Something her people hadn't told her, something they had used. She stared at the screen. Lines of code revealed the truth. She wasn't sent just as bait. She was a key, living lockpick for ancient tech buried across the galaxy, tech that both humans and Thryn had been fighting over for years without even understanding. And now, her body had triggered it. Unknowingly. The war wasn't about resources anymore. It was about her. The med panel buzzed. Stirred, blinking. What's wrong? She sat beside him, holding his hand. I think I was never meant to return alive. They wanted me to activate something. Something old, something dangerous. Dax tried to sit up. What did they use you for? She looked down. They used me to start the next war. Alarms blared again, this time from above. A massive ship, neither human nor Thren, exited hyperspace. Black and gold, smooth design. Alien tech. It didn't ask permission. It spoke through every ship's channel at once. In a voice made of electricity and wind. The key has awakened. Access granted. The warships around them froze. Fighters paused. Mid-flight. The sky turned violet as ancient energy crackled through space. Inside the escape pod. The floor vibrated. A beam of light shone directly on Lyra's chest like a scanner. Her hands trembled. Symbols appeared in the air around her, floating, pulsing. Dax stared in awe. What is that? He whispered. I don't know, she said. But her heart did. It belonged to her. A part of her had been asleep since birth. And now it was awake. The alien ship sent another message. Keybearer step forward. Unlock the gate. A glowing map hovered in front of them. It showed a massive station, a lost space structure, hidden beyond the edge of explored space. A vault, a secret, a weapon. Lyra looked at Dax. He nodded weakly. I trust you. Tears stung her eyes. No one had ever said that to her before, not even her own people. But then came the final betrayal. The Thren warship above opened fire, not at the alien ship, but at the escape pod. Not to protect her, to destroy her. They didn't want her to unlock anything. They wanted her gone before the truth spread. Dax struggled to stand. We have to run. She pulled him close. I'll fly, you hold on. They activated the pod's backup thrusters. The pod roared to life and shot toward the edge of the battle. Lasers followed. One grazed their side. Another missed by inches. Lyra gritted her teeth. She wasn't the scout anymore. She wasn't the prisoner. She was the key to a truth bigger than war, and she would know. Longer run from it. As the pod dove into hyperspace, Lyra made a promise to herself, to Dax, and to every life lost in the endless war. She would reach the gate. She would find out what the Thren and humans were hiding, and she would choose her own future, not as a weapon, but as someone who finally knew who she was. Asterisk. The stars twisted as the escape pod dropped out of hyperspace. But the stars weren't what Lyra noticed. It was the thing waiting for them. An ancient structure, massive, quiet, and floating in deep space like a sleeping god. Gate. It was bigger than anything she had ever seen. Not made by humans, not Thren, not anything known. Its surface shimmered with symbols that responded to her presence. Lines of energy pulsed the moment her pod approached, like the gate had been waiting for her. For thousands of years, Dax sat beside her in the pilot's chair, still injured, but alert. Are you sure? He asked. No, Lyra whispered. But we didn't come this far to turn back. The pod. The gate opened on its own. No force, no passwords. Just recognition. Lyra stepped out first. The hallway lit up with every step she took. Dax followed slowly, leaning on the wall for support. As they walked deeper inside, strange holograms appeared around them, images of species long extinct. Blue-skinned beings with long eyes and flowing robes. A memory echoed through the air, not in sound, but in feeling, a message from the past. This gate was built not for war, but for peace. A bridge, not a weapon. But only one who carries both blood and understanding may open it. Lyra paused. Her hands were glowing faintly. Her DNA, her mixed bloodline. It was the key. She looked at Dax, and for the first time, the full truth came into focus. The Thren had feared her bloodline because it came from something older. A forbidden union long ago between a Thren ancestor and another unknown race. A race of thinkers, not warriors. Her people had called it a defect. But here, in this place, it was the code. The gate led them to a circular chamber. Floating in the center was a glowing orb and ancient AI core, surrounded by silent drones. Lyra stepped forward. "Activate," she said. The orb spun, and light filled the room. Keybearer confirmed. Final protocol, choose. Restore balance, or destroy everything that remains. She blinked. "What do you mean?" The AI projected 2 paths. Path 1. Transmit a peace signal, override all war networks across both human and Thrin fleets. End war instantly. Path 2. Trigger the gate's destruction, erase the truth forever, and return to silence. Dax looked at her. "You don't have to carry this alone." Lyra turned. His face was pale, wounded, but his eyes were clear. "You've already given everything," she said, "and I'd do it again," he replied. She took his hand. It was strange how natural it felt now. Only weeks ago, she had feared his kind. Now, she couldn't imagine the stars without him. She stepped forward. And chose peace. The orb hummed. Golden light rushed into every wall, every corridor. Outside, in the space around the gate, all ships from both sides frozen mid-flight. Then, across every screen, every channel, a new signal pulsed. The war is over. The truth is awake. The key has spoken. In the human fleet, commanders stared at the message in disbelief. On the Thrin flagship, leaders panicked. Some shouted orders. Some dropped their weapons, but no one could stop it. Every ship's weapon system shut down. Every war code erased. A forced pause across the galaxy. Not with violence, but with a choice. Lyra and Dax sat on the platform, breathing quietly, hands still. "Locked, do you think they'll accept it?" she asked. He shrugged. "Not all, but some will, and that's enough to start." She leaned against him. "I used to think I was prey," she whispered. "Hunted, small." "You're not," he said. "I know that now," she replied. "Because prey runs. Partners stay," he smiled. "You stayed. So did you." The gate slowly began to shut itself down. Mission complete. Lyra looked once more at the stars. For the first time, they looked wide and open, not dark and cold. She didn't know what future would come, but she knew who she would face it with. Lyra, the keybearer. Dax, the one who didn't eat her, but saved her. Enemies turned allies. Prisoner turned protector. Prey turned partner. And somewhere, in the great silence between galaxies, the ancient builders of the gate smiled, because once again, someone had chosen peace.